Today headlines for this hour on VTV News. Vietnam and Belgium set to enhance bilateral relationships. And Vietnamese rescuer brave dangers to save lives in Myanmar quake zone. And Iran issues nuclear warning amid tensions with US and Israel.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello, it's 3 p.m. local time in Hanoi. You're watching VTV News. The Politburo and the Secretariat on Tuesday organized a study session on science, technology, innovation, and national digital transformation. Party General Secretary Tô Lâm, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính, and National Assembly Chairman Trần Thanh Mẫn emphasized that this study session is part of the Politburo and Secretariat's planned work program. This affirms the party and state leaders' strong commitments to successfully implementing Resolution 57 of the Politburo. The Politburo and Secretariat aims to lead by example in studying current with this challenging and rapidly evolving field. Following the session, Politburo and Secretariat members will provide feedback to enhance this initiative and will organize further study sessions for Party Central Committee members at the upcoming 11th Central Conference. On Tuesday morning at the Presidential Palace, State President Lương Cường and his spouse hosted the state-level welcoming ceremony for King Philip and the Queen of Belgium, welcoming the Belgian king on his first state visit to Vietnam since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The state president affirmed Vietnam's commitment to strengthening its multifaceted cooperation with Belgium, a key member state with significant influence in the EU. King Philip, who had previously visited Vietnam 3 times as Crown Prince, expressed his joy at returning. He congratulated Vietnam on its recent remarkable socio-economic achievements and discussed with State President Lương Cường major directions to further deepen the traditional friendship between Vietnam and Belgium in more concrete and effective ways. Myanmar authorities have confirmed nearly 2,100 deaths from the devastating 7.7 magnitude earthquake. The disaster had also left approximately 3,900 people injured and 270 missing. Survivors in the affected areas face severe shortages of food, water, and electricity, while fears of aftershock grip local communities.
In Mandalay, hundreds of residents spent the night outdoors due to fears of aftershocks from Friday's powerful earthquake. Many have lost their homes in the disaster, and concerns about structural damage and potential tremors keep people on high alert.
I don't feel safe. The 6- or 7-story buildings next to my house are leaning. They could collapse at any moment.
I'm scared. With my baby, I had no choice but to seek shelter here.
The World Health Organization, WHO, has warned of infectious disease outbreaks, including cholera and dengue fever, as thousands of displaced people crowd into shelters with limited access to clean water and sanitation. Hospitals across Myanmar are struggling to cope with the surge in patients, while critical medical supplies are running low. To address the crisis, the WHO has delivered its first shipment of emergency kits for severe injuries and fractures to the 1,000-bed hospital in Nay Pyi Taw. Additional supplies are en route to Mandalay General Hospital.
Rescue efforts for earthquake victims in Myanmar remain urgent. Even though the critical 72-hour golden window has passed, the earthquake has been classified as the highest level emergencies by the World Health Organization. Despite the challenges, Vietnam's armed forces continue their efforts to reach areas where victims are still trapped. A report from Naypyidaw, Myanmar on Monday night.
After 5 hours of searching in the designated area, the Ministry of Public Security rescue team recovered the body of a young boy. This marked the first victim found by Vietnamese rescue forces in Nay Pyi Taw, Myanmar, The 10-year-old had been buried beneath rubble since a building collapsed during the earthquake 4 days earlier.
I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Vietnamese rescue team.
Meanwhile, Theo Papa Mo from Zambu Theory District was overjoyed when Vietnamese rescue personnel returned several of her belongings and keepsakes from the debris.
Thank you for your help, and you all are so kind. We are so happy. Thank you so much.
You save us.
Yes, okay. That's all we have. Thank you. Thank you. And no one, my mother and my father, even my puppy, they all are safe.
All buildings in this area collapsed similarly. The first floor caved in, with the weight of the 3 floors above crushing everything beneath. This pattern has made it extremely difficult for search and rescue teams to locate buried victims. Working without electricity and in poor visibility, rescuers must rely solely on flashlights and battery-powered lamps. Yet despite these challenges, Vietnamese rescue personnel press on, racing against time to help those affected by the disaster.
April 1st marks the 50th anniversary of Phie Province liberation, a pivotal event in the historic Ho Chi Minh campaign. This milestone contributed to the liberation of South Vietnam on April 30th, 1975, and the country reunification. Central to Phie's liberation was the Battle of Co Chay. How decisive was this battle and what was its intensity? Let's explore these questions through the memories of soldiers who fought in this campaign 50 years ago.
50 years ago, these soldiers took part in a crucial battle that paved the way for Phu Yên liberation, the Battle of Co Chay on March the 19th, 1975. Trần Đức Như recalls the challenges of the battle. Despite unfavorable conditions, he and his comrades remained steadfast, determined to achieve the mission entrusted to them by the Phu Yên Provincial Party Committee.
Comrade Mui, a few other comrades, and I advanced according to plan, aiming to reach fence number 7. But as we approached fence number 5, Comrade Mui suddenly ordered an immediate retreat. If we had moved any further, we would have been exposed.
We were determined to fight. Even if we fell, any comrade who could still fight had to keep going.
At dawn on March the 19th, 1975, the soldiers of Battalion 13 launched their assault on the enemy's stronghold. The battle was intense. However, after just 1 hour of relentless combat, Battalion 13 successfully seized the base, eliminating 103 enemy troops and capturing 3.
Bound by our oath of honor as soldiers, we pledged to complete the mission, regardless of sacrifice.
The victory at Co Chay led to the liberation of 8 communes in Tuy Hoa district, marking the beginning of the general offensive and uprising campaign in the spring of 1975 on the Phu Yên battlefield. Though the war ended 50 years ago, memories of the Co Chay battle remain deeply etched in these soldiers' hearts.
More than 13,000 people will participate in a parade celebrating the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the South and national reunification in Ho Chi Minh City on April 30th. The event will feature 35 armed forces grouped alongside parade contingents organized by Ho Chi Minh City. The parade will include a 21-cannon salute, Air Force flyovers, and a display of important symbolic models. The event will be broadcast live on the morning of April 30th. The Vietnamese Ministry of National Defense has invited defense ministry leaders from China, Laos, and Cambodia to attend, as well as military units from these 3 countries to participate in the anniversary parade. And before moving on to some of the news, let's take a look at foreign exchange rate for today, April 1st. Coming up next on VTV News, e-commerce platform must pay taxes on behalf of business households. And Vietnam's seafood export hit $2.2 billion in the first quarter. Starting today, April 1st, the statistics sector will conduct the 2025 Enterprise Survey nationwide through July 31st, 2025. This annual survey, part of the National Statistical Survey Program, collects information from enterprises, cooperative and cooperative unions. The data helps assess and forecast socio-economic conditions, inform policy decisions, and develop plans for both national and local economies. The survey also provides data for calculating the gross domestic product (GDP) index. Effective today, April 1st, e-commerce platform must deduct and pay taxes on behalf of individuals and online business households, a provision established in the amended law on tax administrations approved by the National Assembly. This measure aims to improve the efficiencies and accuracies of tax management for individuals conducting business on e-commerce platforms. Currently, nearly 725,000 organizations and individuals operate businesses on these platforms, with total transactions reaching $3.2 billion. Vietnam's Ministry of Finance has proposed extending the 2% value-added tax VAT reduction for essential goods and services and expanding the list of eligible items. This move aims to boost consumer demand, support businesses, and drive economic recovery.
Ming, a regular shopper, believes the 2% VAT reduction, while not large per item, adds up when applied to multiple products.
If I spend $40 a week at the supermarket, that's a lot of savings by the end of the month. If I can save like this, I'd like to shop even more.
Saving a 2% on the cost of goods allows us and our suppliers to reinvest in essential products, expand our range, and diversify our inventory.
With purchasing power slowing down due to various external challenges, continuing the 2% VAT reduction across more goods for a longer period is expected to increase overall demand and control inflation.
Businesses can reduce fixed costs due to the VAT cut, which lowers prices for consumers. The reduction in input costs makes companies more competitive.
A further reduction in VAT is a key policy for consumers, especially for those in remote and disadvantaged areas, motivating them to spend more.
According to the Ministry of Finance, the VAT reduction is projected to reduce state revenue by approximately $4.76 billion in the last half of 2025 and next year. The ministry plans to intensify tax administrative reforms and accelerate digital transformation.
Despite years of efforts to renovate all apartment buildings in Hanoi, only about 1.2% of projects have been completed and put into use. Hanoi authorities recently approved to increase the maximum height of new buildings in the Thành Công residential area to 40 stories, marking a significant step forward in the redevelopment of all apartment buildings.
Instead of multiple low-rise buildings, the upcoming redevelopment plan will consolidate old apartment buildings into a few high-rise towers. This is Hanoi's proposed approach for renovating 3 aging buildings, Thành Công, Giang Va, and Ngoc Can. The redevelopment will prioritize on-site resettlement for residents without allowing new housing units for sale.
Controlling population growth is the core objective of this proposal. Increasing building height while reducing density will free up land for commercial and service facilities. According to our current design proposals, the floor space allocated for commercial services will be equivalent to the residential resettlement area.
Once plans are finalized, Hanoi will establish criteria for selecting investors, including capital requirements, financial capacity, and experience. The choice of developer will be up to the residents.
Investors will only participate if they see tangible benefits. Residents also understand that renovating old apartment buildings benefits both themselves and the city. However, each household has different needs. Some are financially stable, while others struggle. That's why the government must ensure a balanced approach that benefits both investors and residents.
The self-determined mechanisms, such as flexible zoning adjustments, additional compensation, and resettlement support, are key to overcoming long-standing obstacles. However, they also pose significant challenges for infrastructure, requiring careful planning and comprehensive solutions.
For this area to truly develop as a commercial and service hub, it must attract a high volume of visitors and residents, creating a bustling space. That means transportation systems and infrastructure must be upgraded in sync with the project to maximize the commercial potential of the land.
The issue of old apartment renovation has been discussed for decades, yet many deteriorating buildings remain at risk of collapse, awaiting decisive policy solutions. Implementing strong, effective measures will not only accelerate redevelopment, but also help transform Hanoi's urban landscape.
Vietnam's seafood export reached over $2.2 billion in the first quarter, marking an increase of more than 15% from the previous year, with shrimp export alone contributing nearly $1 billion. Shrimp and troutfish continue to be the primary export products, while the industry works to diversify through eel, tilapia, and offshore aquaculture development. Companies are expanding their investment in oyster farming, seaweed, abalone, and sea cucumber production. The government's initiative to grant marine water usage right beyond 6 nautical miles has encouraged larger-scale investment. Additionally, free trade agreements with strategic partners and supportive export policies are helping Vietnamese seafood products reach emerging markets in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Depleting resources, declining orders, and rising costs at these market challenges require the billion-dollar seafood industry to rethink its approach for a more proactive, effective, and sustainable future. In the Mekong Delta, many businesses are already developing long-term strategies to maintain their growth momentum.
Every month, this factory exports around 30 containers, totaling over 750 tons of various seafood products. Enhancing deep processing is the company's top priority in response to raw material shortages.
Marinated and deeply processed products give the factory a significant advantage in dealing with demanding markets.
Each year, seafood exports generate over $10 billion. However, this figure is declining as farming practices remain unsustainable and factories continue to struggle with unstable raw material supplies.
Export value may increase, but if only a few factories succeed while farmers struggle, supply won't meet demand, and farmers will lose their source of income.
According to industry experts, establishing a national seafood data center should be a priority. This platform would provide real-time updates on policies, market trends, and industry developments, helping farmers and businesses make informed decisions in production, procurement, processing, and exports.
Transforming production methods, proactively addressing challenges, and seizing opportunities in the global supply chain will be an essential step for the seafood industry to achieve sustainable growth and expand its reach. Coming up next, Iran issued nuclear warning amid tension with U.S. and Israel. And China launched military drills around Taiwan, China. Iran may be forced to develop nuclear weapons if attacked by the United States or Israel over its nuclear program, according to Ali Rajiani, advisor to Iran's supreme leader. In a statement to the media, Rajiani emphasized that Iran currently adheres to a religious decrees from the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei prohibiting the possessions of nuclear weapons. However, this stance could change depending on future actions taken by the United States and Israel. He cautions that any military actions against Iran would have unpredictable consequences, emphasizing that airstrike alone would not be sufficient to dismantle Iran's nuclear program. His remarks come as U.S. President Donald Trump escalates pressure on Tehran, issuing stern warning and threatening unprecedented military strikes if Iran refuses to negotiate over its nuclear activities. China has launched large-scale military exercises around Taiwan, China, deploying naval, air, and missile forces. The drill encompasses combat readiness patrols at sea and in the air, with objectives including gaining strategic superiority, striking land and sea targets, and controlling key areas and maritime routes. These exercises tested the coordination and operational capabilities of Chinese forces. China considers Taiwan an inseparable part of its territory and has not ruled out using force to achieve reunification. This latest escalation has raised international concerns about regional stability. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called for stronger international cooperation to dismantle human trafficking networks. At a high-level border security conference in London, Prime Minister Starmer warned that traffickers are exploiting both institutional loopholes and divisions between nations. He stressed the importance of sharing intelligence, coordinating resources, and addressing the problem at its source. In February, the UK government announced stricter immigration policies, stating that undocumented migrants arriving by small boat would be ineligible for future citizenship. Meanwhile, the UK and Vietnam are working to finalize agreements aimed at preventing human trafficking. Both nations have pledged to strengthen cooperation in ensuring safe and legal migration pathways, protecting victims, and eradicating trafficking-related crimes. The creative world in Vietnam is becoming more inclusive of people with disability. This is especially true in the field of painting, where many deaf artists have found a way to express themselves. One example is the young female artist Dương Linh Dan, who has overcome many obstacles to create amazing work of art. Through painting, she is able to connect with the world around her.
Dương Linh Dan's artistic expressions extends beyond lacquer to include oil, gouache, and various other mediums. Notably, her piece, Zhao Xuan, represents a significant breakthrough in her creative journey. This work was showcased in Singapore in April 2024.
The inspiration for my work comes from the beauty of Vietnamese outside, especially the costume worn by Bắc Ninh Quan họ singers. Scraps of fabric that might be discarded in daily life through the eyes of an artist can be transformed into works of art. I believe this is a meaningful project, contributing to both environmental conservation and creative expression.
She developed a love for drawing at the age of 2. When she was around 4 years old, it was discovered that she had a slight hearing loss, and further tests confirmed that she was deaf.
As a deaf artist, Dương Linh Dan has never viewed it as a barrier. Rather than being limited by challenges, she transforms every obstacle into a source of inspiration.
My biggest goal is to hold a solo exhibition before turning 30. I hope to bring my work closer to the public and in the future take on projects related to public art.
Art enthusiasts should look forward to Dương Linh Dan's upcoming exhibition, which will showcase works created through the passion and dedication of this promising young artist.
Vietnam's classical music scene is experiencing remarkable dynamism. An increasing number of national and international events are being held across the country, providing audiences with greater opportunities to enjoy world-class performances while deepening their appreciation for classical music.
Pianist Lương Khánh Nhi is the first Vietnamese artist to win third prize at the prestigious Leeds International Piano Competition. This marks the most significant achievement for a Vietnamese pianist since pianist Đặng Thái Sơn victory at the 1980 International Chopin Piano Competition. Her recent performance in Vietnam was her first since receiving this prestigious award.
I left Vietnam 10 years ago, and classical music was still relatively unfamiliar to the public then. But now, with the increasing number of performances and the construction of new theaters in Hanoi, it feels like a turning point. This is an incredible opportunity for orchestras to perform.
In 2024, Vietnam's classical music scene has seen a surge in concerts featuring international and Vietnamese artists. The emergence of new orchestras, the establishment of world-class theaters, and collaborations with international musicians have made classical music more appealing to the public.
It inspires Vietnamese artists to strive for greater excellence and elevates the country's classical music scene to an international standard.
In the past, audiences had to travel to cities like Singapore, Seoul, Tokyo, or Beijing to experience performances in such grand venues. Now, world-class classical concerts can be enjoyed right in the heart of Hanoi.
While classical music in Vietnam is flourishing, greater investment and support are needed to ensure its continued growth and accessibility. Countries like the US, Japan, South Korea, and China have invested substantially in academic arts. This calls for greater efforts to elevate Vietnam's classical music.
And now, as usual, let's continue with the weather forecast. And that's all the news for today. To rewatch our program, you can log on to VTVgo.vn or download a mobile application VTVgo. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.